For about 20 years in the football game genre, there have been two massive games. You have FIFA, which I'm sure the majority of people watching this video will know all about, and you also had the more eccentric Pro Evolution Soccer from Japan. While that series is now dead and eFootball still doesn't have a career mode, we're going to be looking at 10 of the best features from the older PES games that really should be added into FIFA, that would improve the game a lot and, in my opinion, just make things a lot more fun. Before we get started, I think you all need to know that it was always really hard to earn money in PES. A lot of the things we're talking about today either spent budget to improve your performances on the pitch, or they gave you money based on those performances, which isn't really how FIFA works. But I still think a lot of these things would be really good additions to the game. So let's start with something that I think should be in every single management game: staff. In PES, they had scouts who would handle negotiations for players. You could find an interesting player and the scout would come back with a transfer value based on the scout's skills. The better the scout, the less money you'd be paying for a player. I think this is a lot more like how things work in real life. Of course, in real life, it would probably be a director of football doing this, not a scout. But it would be fun to have maybe an option in FIFA where you can choose between negotiating as a manager or letting your director of football handle things. PES 2010 also introduced coaches with different levels of skill. So level 5 coaches would help players develop faster in certain areas, but also cost a few million of your budget every season. A level 1 scout didn't have anywhere near as much impact on skill development, but they were only costing a few thousand, so they were ideal if you were a really small club. In FIFA, having coaches with different strengths for attack, defense, goalkeeping and fitness could add a bit of strategy into the game. You'd need to balance what skills you want to develop your players further. You can think of it a bit like how youth staff work currently on FIFA 23. You could have 3 staff slots, but you have to renew them each season. You could go fully focused on maybe physical training and risk a lot of injuries, or you might want things to be a bit more balanced and then every area grows at the same rate. PES also had a physiotherapist who would help your players recover from injuries faster. The better the physiotherapist, the better the treatment, but they'd also be boosting your players' form, which I guess now is more associated with a conditioning coach than a physiotherapist. Having high-quality physiotherapists was really important if you were a successful team going far in Europe or cup competitions, but if you were lower down, you could easily skip this staff and just save a bit of money. Basically, by adding some different staff options, FIFA would add something to spend budget on, it would be another way to customize our clubs, and it would also add some realism. We all know what it's like to get attached to our favourite managers, so why not add in favourite assistant managers or favourite coaches that you always want to sign in every career mode? As well as staff, facilities were also added in PES 2010. There was only 2 different facilities included, there was the fan club and the youth academy, but they did have a big impact on your save. The more you invested in your academy each year, the better your youth you received, so this makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, the fan club would boost the amount of people who would show up to your games, which isn't really that good of an idea. Having a couple of different facilities to invest in could be a fun way to add some difference between teams though. Maybe a team like Crew Alexandra in League 2 or Le Havre in the French 2nd Division could start out with level 3 academies while the rest of their league only has level 1. You could combine this with youth scouts to make certain teams produce better players, but it would also let any club invest in their facilities for maybe 10 million per level and eventually become the best in the world even if they started out at level 1. You might have noticed I really do think career mode needs more things to spend money on and more things that should have a yearly cost instead of a one-off, but I do think facilities would be a great way of maybe having a big upfront cost that will pay off over the span of your career mode. Sponsors also played a big role in Master League. They offered several benefits to your team. They boosted both the transfer budgets while adding a bit of realism. Firstly, as you'd expect, sponsors allowed a team to generate money. The extra income could be used to fund player transfers or improve the facilities we just mentioned or the staff aspect we mentioned at the start of this video. By having a team sponsor, you could maybe pick a big upfront amount that you could spend in pre-season, or you could go for the higher monthly fee, which would cover player wages throughout the entire year. In addition to the financial benefits, sponsors also added some incentive-based objectives. You could earn revenue based on the amount of home wins you get every season or going far in cup competitions. I remember there was a week in one of my saves where my team had 3 different matches, 2 in the league and 1 in the cup. I rested all of my players for the league games because we'd get more money if we got through to the next round of the cup than if we actually won the league game. It was always hard to get money in Master League, so something about this feature just made each victory feel a bit more rewarding and maybe a bit more significant in the long term of the save. The inclusion of sponsorship deals also added a sense of realism and immersion to the game. I remember there was a ton of different mods that would replace the fake brands with real ones, so you could have sponsors approach from Nike, from Samsung, from Kia. All of these massive brands could approach you and offer you money, and then you could go into edit mode and actually apply them to your kits. It was a really cool idea, and I think the inclusion of sponsorship would add maybe some realism and immersion to the game. Just like in real football, you'd be given targets by both sponsors and the board, which felt like more of an authentic experience. Back then, it did feel as if this was actually something that could happen while you were managing a real team. Instead of players retiring on PES, sometimes they will instead regenerate as a 16-year-old about 6 months after they retire. So that means if you're lucky, you can get an email saying your academy has some new graduates. You have a look in there, and you've got Ronaldo, Messi, Benzema, and Lewandowski all sat there waiting for you to sign. While this could use some work, maybe a face aging system so Buffon doesn't look 45 years old despite being a 16-year-old regen, this option is quite cool. As there are plenty of older players who have a unique set of traits on PES, you can easily find the next Gareth Bale, for example, by signing Gareth Bale. Let's say that you're really enjoying using Benzema and the traits that he has on FIFA. He's going to retire in 2 or 3 years, so he's going to be totally gone from the game, and you'll have to hopefully develop or find a young player with a similar set of skills and traits. You can even give some flops the careers we thought they might have. For example, you might find a Dele Alli in there, 16 years old, and you can finally make him world class. Ross Barkley, there's so many players like that, and you can just revive their careers actually inside your PES Master League save. I mean, who wouldn't actually want to have more stuff to do in the game? It's all about adding depth, customization, and realism to the game. And hey, facilities like youth academies and fan clubs could add some much needed variety between the teams. Imagine if you had to invest basically your whole season budget as Brentford to actually start up a youth academy when they didn't have one. Imagine if you were starting out in the 4th division and your team was already world class in this area. Imagine you were one of those 3rd division German side that pulls in 55,000 fans every single week despite not actually having that good of a team. It's these little details that would make things a lot more immersive and a lot more exciting on FIFA Career Mode. All in all, I think FIFA really does need to take a look back, not only on the old PES games, but also on some of the old FIFA games, where some of these features were actually in there, like sponsorships and staff management. If they can combine this with maybe some elements of Football Manager, like I mentioned in a similar video to this one I made on that series, I think you could have, finally, the best football game that has ever been released. I'm sure a lot of you guys have played PES in the past, and if you've got any features that you think I've missed, make sure you leave them in the comments below. Like I said, I did a video like this for Football Manager as well, so if you've played that game, leave some of those comments too, and hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Really would appreciate a like if you can drop one, but thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon. Cheers and goodbye.